flower fairy at the ready. Hello beautiful souls and welcome back, or if you are new, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you can join our growing spiritual community. We are unboxing and reviewing the Rose Oracle today by Rebecca Campbell. I've heard some really mixed reviews about this, so I thought, hey, why don't I order this and we can go through it together and see what it's like, who it's for, and just generally go through it together. So let's get started. Obviously I felt I had to come appropriately dressed for this, so I've gone a little bit extra. So we have gone full flower power hippie today, which is pretty cool. So I actually wasn't going to order this deck purely because I'm on a bit of a deck ban. That sounds awkward. On a bit of a tarot and oracle deck ban this year. I do have one on the way that's a pre-order, which I think you guys are going to love, but I was not going to get any more and I wasn't particularly feeling drawn to this one. However, I've heard some really mixed reviews from people. Some people have said it's too samey to her other work. Some people have said that they can't connect to it, or they feel that it's got too many people in it and it should have more roses. And then other people have told me they think it's a really beautiful deck and they're absolutely loving working with it. So I thought, well, hey, why don't I get this? We can go through it together. I will do a full flip through for you. I will also do a pick a card reading and we'll do a little review and just really kind of see what the vibe is. I do also have, if I can pick it up, the Starseed Oracle with me just to kind of compare, because obviously we know Rebecca has, you know, done a few decks. I thought it'd be good to look at her latest two and just kind of compare a couple of cards, and I imagine they're going to be quite similar, but we'll see. So I'm interested to see what's going on and what the vibe is. So first impressions of the box, it just arrived yesterday. I will admit I did get this from Amazon, mostly because I wasn't really intending on getting this, so I figured I'm just going to go for the cheapest option. You guys know I normally like to support small businesses and buy from small businesses. However, I figured since I'm not really sure about this deck, I will just get it from the cheapest place. So let's have a little look inside. I mean, my first impressions would be that this is a beautiful box. I have no doubt that the artwork will be stunning. I do know that Rebecca has obviously worked with a different artist for this, which is really interesting to me, and I'm presuming it's probably because Danielle Nell has been working on her own oracle, the Ocean Dreams Oracle, which is my pre-order deck, so I'm really excited to share that with you. So I presume that's why they didn't work together. Instead, Rebecca has worked with Katie-Louise from She Is Luminous. The only thing I would say is I think it would have been quite nice if Rebecca had done something completely different art-wise, because even though she's worked with different artists, I think the art is going to look quite similar, because both artists use the kind of collage graphic design that I absolutely love, so I'm really happy with that. But I think in a way it would have been a really great opportunity for Rebecca to maybe work with like a black-owned business, with an artist who maybe did hand drawings or something like that. I think that would have been really cool, especially for roses, but maybe she wanted to get the graphic and the actual rose and the actual energy in. I'm not really sure. Maybe she says inside. I don't know. Let's find out. So the box is the same kind of design as the Starseed Oracle. I can't lie, I do find this annoying. Every time I pull it off the shelf, I pull it off and it falls. So I do wish she'd just gone for a regular box. I don't use it the way she's intended. I don't really think it looks very nice that way. Can't really understand the point of that, but she's trying something different, you know, like whatever, that's fine. Okay, so the box is obviously very pretty. We've got this gorgeous rose design here. You can just see a person here with what looks like a pearl. We've got the foiling of the Rose Oracle. I think it would have been nice if she called it the Sacred Rose Oracle. Don't you just feel like that just brings it up a level? It just sounds a bit like basic really, doesn't it? The Rose Oracle. Whereas if you say the Sacred Rose Oracle, to me that's just like, oh, what's that? And then on the back, as always, there's a couple of examples. We have a little bit of information here. The rose is a symbol of goddesses of the old, and she holds potent medicine for these times. This oracle creates space for you to connect with her energy, wisdom, and breathtaking beauty. May her healing mysteries call you home to your true nature. There's a little bit of information on the bottom and then just on the top there. So this is my first time opening it. Let's see what we have inside. Didn't think that was going to open then. Okay, so inside is a quote that Rebecca quite likes at the moment, which is plant yourself here. Obviously I'll do close-ups for you guys, with a kind of watery interior, which is interesting. I like the contrast. And then if we just take those out, it says the same design at the bottom, which is interesting because she talks about planting yourself here in her new book. So there's more of a starseed vibe to that to me. But again, I could be completely wrong. There might be a really strong reason for that. Maybe, you know, there's a connection there. Okay, what I do like is the paper band we have here. It's not wrapped in plastic, which is nice. It says, unlock the sacred mysteries of the rose. So immediately I'm noticing there is no foiling on the sides. I don't think she has foiling on her other decks though. No, not sure why. There must be a reason. I don't know if Hay House just just maybe don't like that anymore, or maybe there's like an environmental reason or something, or maybe it just puts the cost up too much. But this deck is actually a lot smaller than the Starseed Oracle. This is only 44 cards and the Starseed Oracle is 53. Again, there might be a reason for that, I guess. If you're just focusing on roses as opposed to flowers, maybe there's a little bit, it's a bit more limiting perhaps, I'm not sure. So initially I'm seeing here it says the Rose Oracle Attunement. On the back of this card you will find the Rose Oracle Attunement altar card. You can use the attunement to ritually connect with your oracle and Mother Rose each time you use it. You can find a free visual and audio ritual version of the attunement at theroseoracle.com. Well, that's really nice that she's included that. I like that. Let's see what the image is then. Oh, it's just an image of a rose, and then you have the actual attunement that you can have here. I'll do a close-up for you guys to see that. But that's nice, so you can place that on your altar. I think that's a lovely idea. So before we go through the cards, we will obviously go through the guidebook. Now this is quite a big guidebook. This looks bigger than her last one. Interestingly, it's slightly thicker than her Starseed Oracle guidebook. Only a little bit, I'd say like what, 20 pages? And it's just a tiny bit taller. So it says Rebecca Campbell, artwork by Katie-Louise. We've got the same image as on the front of the box, the Rose Oracle guidebook, and then on the back is just a bit of information about Rebecca and the deck itself. So let's have a flick through and see what it says. Is it in colour? Okay, it's not in colour, but it has pink in it, which is interesting to me. I wonder why they didn't go for colour. So again, we have the attunement and a prayer in colour, which looks lovely, and then the actual cards themselves, it's just the bottom that they've picked to be pink. Yeah, there's obviously a reason for that. I always find it really interesting how somebody decides to design their guidebook, because sometimes a guidebook is surplus. If you know a deck really well, or if you're really connected to your intuition, you don't really need the guidebook. But sometimes it's nice to actually have a look and to see what the author intended for it, and to just see if that matches your intuition, or to see if it expands on it, or to see if you've expanded on it as well. So let's go through the Rose Oracle guidebook. We have, so the Ancient Mysteries of the Rose is the first thing, and she's talked about the call of the rose, etc., connecting to that, which I think is nice. The Oracle, working with the Oracle, about it, the attunement, reading the cards, using the box as a portable altar. Again, like, I just don't see the point in that at all. It doesn't look nice in my eyes. I'd rather just have a little slot to pop it in, or just lean it against something, but just my preference. You might love that she's done that. And then some ideas for spreads. And then we have, sounds like I'm talking about butter. Then we have the cards themselves, messages and interpretations. And I'm glad to see that she has done them in, what's it called? Alphabetical order, because in her previous deck, I don't know if it was this one, in one of her decks anyway, it's done in different vibrations, and I never can find the cards. So I'm really happy that she's gone for alphabetical. I just think that's so much easier. And then obviously going deeper, bibliography about the creator, about the author, which is lovely. So there's loads of information in here, which is really exciting. I'm keen to just dive into the deck really. I will obviously do a flick through for you so that you can have a little look through and see what you get. In a way, I think it's kind of a shame they haven't done colour, because it just, I don't know, it feels a bit flat really to have this bit in colour but not that. I'm just like, what was the point in that? Why not just have all of it in black and white? I don't know, we'll find out. We will see. Maybe it doesn't need it. I mean, it is so far beautiful. So we'll start by just talking about the back of the deck, which I do think is really stunning. I would definitely say Rebecca, if she gives instructions or if it's just the artist, I'm not sure, but Rebecca always has beautiful backs of her deck, which is really important to me. I have to be honest with you, that's the thing you see the most when you're shuffling or when you're spreading the cards, so I think that's really important. So we have her usual triangle symbol that she enjoys, some roses. It almost looks like, I can't quite tell if that's like the middle of the flower, like, is it called the stamen or the stigma, something, you know, the thing that has the pollen on? Looks like it's that bit there, and it's kind of echoed with what looks like a bit of water. So there is quite a watery connection here, which is really interesting for me. So let's have a look at some of the cards. I will do a full flip through for you, so you can just skip ahead to that if you want to see every single card. But let's just pick a couple to have a little look and see. 'Cause as I say, some people were saying, oh, you know, there's only people in this. I wanted it to kind of have a bit more rose connection. So the first one is After the Rain, silver lining, relief, hope, mercy, it's over, acceptance. I do like how what Rebecca does is she does put quite a bit of information on the card. So again, you don't have to look at the guidebook. You can just say, okay, after the rain, silver lining, relief. Okay, so somebody's been through something and they're feeling better now. They're able to see the blessing in it. Great. I can just read from that and go into that, right? So this is quite a nice card. Yes, there is a lot of a person in that. I don't see any roses apart from, oh, there's a tiny bit of rose there and a little bit of rose around the womb as well, which is really interesting. Oh, this is beautiful. I like this one. Brothers of the Rose. That's really nice. Let me just show you that one. Brothers of the Rose, sacred masculine, honor, protection, support. I really like that because there's a beautiful pregnant lady in the middle there and she has the rose in the womb and rose around her breasts. And then there's men surrounding her, like almost protecting and holding that space, which I think is really beautiful. I really like that. And I'm seeing a lot of people, definitely. So far, there's definitely definitely some really beautiful cards. Like, I'm really loving this one, Lineage of the Rose. Moved by the goddess, here for this soul call gather. That's a really gorgeous image with like the rose pouring the water out and all these people coming together, and I suppose these two mirrored women could be the goddess. I really like that. I'll have a look in the guidebook and see if she's talked about what her ideas and inspirations were, because I'll be honest, I did think there would be more roses just on their own in this, and that would have been fine for me. I wouldn't have minded at all. I love flowers, so duh. So I would have been really happy with that. Every card is really beautiful. I mean, Katie-Louise is a beautiful illustrator, so yeah, absolutely stunning. So she's got a bit of information here about how lots of people over the years have obviously connected to roses. They are a symbol of beauty, love, great mystery, and she's put throughout this oracle, you'll see that I sometimes refer to the rose as Mother Rose. This is what I call the energy I connect with when I tune into the rose. If the name Mother Rose doesn't resonate with you, please replace it with one that does. While I do find that each rose is unique, this is the name I use. Now this is interesting because, to be honest, I'm mostly seeing pinky roses in this. I'm not really seeing like yellow roses or deep red roses. So it feels to me like her connection is mostly to pink roses, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I feel like for the Rose Oracle, I would have loved it if she had, you know, actually brought some different roses in which case, why not call it the Rose Lineage Oracle, right? That would be a beautiful name for it, because then you're like, oh, I'm connecting to the lineage of the roses, how the roses have been used and worked with over time. So again, I just think maybe there could have been a little tweak here and there, and perhaps that's why some people aren't connecting with it, because when you think of the Rose Oracle, you're just thinking of flowers. You're just thinking, oh, I'm connecting to flowers, what flowers mean, what their divination properties are. In actual fact, Rebecca's thinking of the lineage, the goddesses, you know, the divine feminine side, the Venusian side, and so that's why there's lots of people in it, right? Because she's talking about the ancestral and the goddess. So I think the lineage might actually be more important than the actual rose on its own. Does that make sense? So I think that's probably what's going on here, because she said here, I see the rose as a sacred ally for humanity. The medicine that she brings feels like the goddess herself. So I really think there's more of this like divine feminine lineage going on here. So maybe it's the title that is what perhaps is creating a disconnect for some people. Of course, there are some people who probably just absolutely love the artwork, right? Or the words that Rebecca has channeled and downloaded for this. So maybe there's that connection too as well. Sometimes it's good to like really read about a deck if you're not connecting with it as much, and meditate with it, you know, like sit with it, have it on your altar, pull a card every day to try and connect with it a bit more if it's perhaps not really connecting for you. Then she says, in creating this oracle, my intention is to provide the space for you to connect with and be held by the healing energy, mysterious wisdom, and breathtaking beauty of the rose as a gateway to the wisdom, healing, and whispers of both nature and your own soul. That's a long sentence. Whoa! Yeah, I think what's really interesting is Rebecca says the Rose Oracle isn't an attempt to be a definitive oracle on all things rose, in which case I definitely think she could have called it the Rose Lineage. I feel like that's a really great name. Obviously they can't do that now because they've they've printed, they published, they've put them out to people, but I just think that would have been a great idea. I might even message her and say, like, for future reference, because I have no doubt she'll probably write a book, right? Because she did the same with the sacred, why am I keep saying sacred? She did the same with the Starseed Oracle, like she put out the oracle and then wrote a book. I'm imagining she'll do like a rose book, you know, like rose path, rose healing, I'm not really sure, like letters from the rose, wisdom from the rose, something like that, right? So I feel like we've kind of opened up and understood the mystery, which again is like such a divine feminine thing. This is the thing about the divine feminine, is it's meant to be a space of mystery. You're not meant to totally know. It's meant to be a feeling or an inner knowing, as opposed to like an outer understanding or a tangible knowing, right? It's just you know it within you, but you can't necessarily express it. So I think this is a rose lineage deck, and I think if you can think of it in that sense, you're going to connect with it really nicely. So we'll go and do a reading now. Let me just tune into the cards. Let me just shuffle the cards, give them a really good shuffle. I'm going to pick 2 cards. I think we'll just set the intention there. It's what you most need to hear in this moment. So bear with me whilst I tune into this, and I will be right back. So all you need to do is just close your eyes, set the intention that you choose the card that's for your highest good right now, and when you're ready, open them and just choose from card pile 1 or card pile 2. Just trust that the right thing will come through for you, and if you want, you're very welcome to watch both. It's okay to enjoy both of the readings and receive both of the insights and wisdoms that come through. So if you chose card pile 1, then you chose the second bloom. A second chance is never too late, new possibilities. And we have a woman here in the center with her palms open, looks like she's meditating, open to receiving this beautiful rose, and then lots of water shimmering, and then almost it looks like crystalline elements around the outside. It's very pretty. And this to me is basically saying maybe something that you thought wasn't going to happen or couldn't happen is going to happen, and it's like you're getting the second opportunity for it to come about. So that could be in career, but honestly what came through immediately is romance. Perhaps you loved and lost in the past. Maybe this person is going to come back into your life. Please be wary of Mercury retrograde. Please make sure you're very wary of that, and you know, reconnect again outside of that so that you can be sure that it's a true connection. But something's going to happen that's just going to push you back onto that path. And I have talked about this before. It does kind of feel like 2022 is pushing us back onto the timeline that we were on originally in 2018. It's almost like we got knocked off it with everything that happened from 2019, 2020 onwards, and we're being put back onto that old timeline now. And when I say old, I don't mean like we're going back. I just mean that we're reconnecting with that. You know, we've had this loop that we've kind of gone off into, and we're reconnecting, and it won't be fully reconnected straight away, but we're getting there. So perhaps something from that timeline is coming back into your life. I'm feeling romance is coming up, not just because of roses and the Venusian beauty and love connection, but that's just immediately the second chance thing to me was like romance is what's coming up. So just be aware of that. Just maybe open your heart to receiving and to trusting that if somebody is coming back in, there's a reason. It does say new possibilities and it's never too late. So there may be an opportunity to try again. Maybe something happened in the past, it didn't work out. Maybe this is a chance to do things differently, to be a different person. Maybe you've grown a lot in that time. Maybe they have grown a lot in that time. Or maybe you've just reconnected more to yourself and they have too, and therefore it's more authentic when you come together. Sometimes it's the right person but the wrong time, and we know that it's the right person and they know that we're the right person, but for whatever reason it just can't come to fruition. It just can't really bud and bloom into this beautiful rose, right? Because it's just not the right time. They have something they need to go and do and experience, and maybe you need to do the same as well. Maybe you both needed to ground, really find who you were as a person, and this time you can come back together and actually really share a beautiful love, really let it blossom into something new, something exciting, and maybe just put the past completely behind you, start afresh as if you've never met before, and just allow it to unfold, to bloom and blossom in the most authentic, loving way. I think this is really exciting. Let me know how this resonates in the comments below. So if you chose card number 2, then you chose the child within, inner mother, innocence, gentleness, tenderness, and we have a baby in a mother's hands, and the mother here, and then the rose enveloping around her with almost like prism type energy around it. It's really beautiful. So this is two things to me. Firstly, to me, this is talking about the inner child. Maybe there's a bit of inner child nurturing that you need to do, maybe some healing or some work. Something might have come up recently and you're thinking, okay, I really need to work through that. I need to work on that. But it's also talking about inner mother. So obviously we can mother ourselves, we can work on our inner child and our relationship with our inner child and become the mother to ourselves. But also maybe you are cultivating a space or getting into the mindset or the energy to become ready to birth something. Now that doesn't have to be a child, but it's most likely that you're watching this and you're ready to birth something in your life, and it's going to be something that maybe is quite new and hasn't really been thought of before, and so it's really your precious baby in a sense. And it says gentleness and tenderness, innocence, so it's like you're coming from a very gentle space, very innocent space, and therefore just allowing it to come and be birthed in a very subtle way. That's what I feel is coming through. Is there's a very soft energy to this card. Like I feel quite calm even just connecting to this card. I feel like I feel held, I feel calm. So just allowing that energy and that space to come into you when you're birthing whatever it is you're birthing. If it is an actual child, then by all means you can bring in, you know, a doula and have a really sacred birth ceremony. But I just feel this softness. Maybe you need to be more soft and gentle with yourself. Maybe you've been really caught up in the rat race of life, really pushing yourself, and maybe this is just inviting you to take some time to nurture yourself and to connect with your innocence, to connect with your inner child in a fun way, right? I always think if you can connect to the inner child, you can bring joy to it. When we think of inner child healing, we think of like this really heavy, serious stuff like working on childhood wounds, and by all means please do that. It's really important to work through those things, but if you can also bring some play into that, it's great. So connecting with things you enjoyed as a child, rereading things, rewatching things, something like that. It's just like bring a little bit of joy into it, because we're talking about gentleness. You don't have to go in and be like, oh, shadow work, inner child healing, I really need to get into the core wounds. You don't have to do that straight away. Sometimes just connecting to the inner child, nurturing it, giving it what it needs is actually more than enough. So let me know how this resonates with you. Do something that's really loving and caring towards yourself, or if you're really birthing something that's really exciting and innocent and new to the world. Let me know how those readings resonated in the comments below. Let me know what you think of this deck. I think it's beautiful. I think now that we've kind of got to the bottom of the fact it's more about the rose lineage than just roses, I think it makes a lot more sense. I can definitely see myself working with this deck. Nice easy cards to shuffle with, good card stock. I think this deck will probably call to you if you're somebody who wants to work more with the divine feminine and the goddess and, you know, grandmothers, ancestry, those kinds of things. I think it will be good for you. I think it's quite different actually in that sense to the Starseed oracle actually. I mean, the cards are exactly the same size, the same shape, so you are going to find, I mean, there is definitely, like you can just see from these two cards, there is definitely like an overall colour palette that Rebecca works a lot with, which is interesting. So I just wanted to show you some of the similarities in the decks. You have the Rose Garden and the Wastelands from the Rose Oracle, and Water Your Garden from the Starseed Oracle. You can see some similarities there. And then we have the Fertile Void from the Rose Oracle and the Void from the Starseed Oracle. So there's definitely some expansion going on in these cards, but similarities too. Yes, I think this is a nice deck. I think for the £15, 19p that I paid for it, it's definitely worth it. Probably wouldn't pay more than that unless there was foiling on the edges. You guys know I love my foiling. Like, I don't get it. Like, why put foiling on the box but not put it around the deck? I've just never understood that. If you have this deck, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Have you used it? Do you connect to it and resonate with it? Do you feel more of a connection now that we've talked about the idea of it being more about the lineage of the rose? So let's go through all of the cards together. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you in next week's video. The star child, no, and see whether it's, and see who the audience